Kia ora. Welcome to the first AI show event of 2024. Please welcome our next speaker, Heath Waugh from Matter Studio.
G'day, I'm Heath from Matter Studio, and I'm here today to talk to you about Photography 2.0, which is the work that Matter's doing in the space of combining photography with AI-generated backgrounds. I'm the co-founder of Matter with my business partners Robert Hart out there and Ron Anand, who are hiding in the background. And I wanted to talk to you about the idea behind Matter today, which is essentially the hat. I had to incorporate the hat. Me and my wife go to Arizona every year, and we love it over there, and it's hard to come back each year because we love it so much. I bought this hat last time I was there and wanted to use it as a bit of an analogy for how Matter solves the problem that we've been facing in photography for a long time. So the image on the left, my wife took on the day I bought my hat, and if you think about it for a second, of that photo taken in a commercial context of what would have gone into that, there's flights and accommodation, there's airport transfers, there's location scouting, recce's, there's permits, and then you move into the photo shoot actual aspect of it, and there's crew costs, photography costs, all sorts. I think realistically, you'd be looking at a kind of $50,000 to $100,000 budget just to get that done. Whereas the image on the right, we shot at Matter in maybe 20 minutes on a Monday morning in the comfort of our studio. And realistically, I think it looks better. The image grade is better. The composition's better. There's a horse in it. It's just better all around. And realistically, if you think the comparative costs are almost zero to really something quite staggering on the left. So our story, there's three of us involved. We've been doing this for a really long time. We essentially all got into the photography industry straight out of university. I'm a producer, Rob's a photographer, and Ron's a retoucher. We've been doing what we do in a really specialized fashion for about 20 years. And the boys started working together about 20 years ago. I joined them about 15 years ago. And in 2011, we founded Shadowlands, which is our first photography studio. And we've literally, since then, I imagine, shot thousands and thousands of days in studio, and we've really kind of honed our experience and studio craft and time in the saddle in that time. And that's kind of uniquely positioned us to take advantage of generative AI in the way that we have recently. So in late 2023, we founded Matter Studio. So we started kind of, like everyone else, we started just playing with generative AI because it's so engaging and so exciting to be able to bring any kind of idea that you've got to life. And I was kind of, to start off with, I was making Street Fighter 2 characters in there 30 years on, having existential crises, and we were just so caught up in this ability to just bring any idea to life, but we couldn't really picture a way to bring it to life commercially. It didn't seem to have any commercial viability for us and with our skill set. We just spent weeks thinking about it. How can we really turn this into something? Because it seemed like such a pivotal moment. It seemed that it was just too good to miss out on. So eventually, a conversation I'd had with a client previously came back into my mind, and he said, AI is amazing, but I can't get my product into it. There's no commercial viability for it for me. So the more we thought about that, we kind of thought, do we lean into our skill set that we've kind of developed over these years? Do we pull the kind of creativity of the imagery back to something that's more commercially useful? And that's what we did, and we started. And it worked successfully, and the response to it was really amazing. and we made more. And in the process of doing this, we kind of realized that it don't just make amazing images, we don't just make cool stuff, it actually solves a problem that we've been facing for the kind of 15, 20 years we've been working together in photography. And that is that shooting on location is horrible. It's actually really hard work, it's physically demanding, it's expensive. From a client point of view, the costs are outrageous. From a crew point of view, it's difficult. You're up early, you're lugging gear around, it's physically demanding. I know that picture kind of tells a different story. The vista is lovely, and but the reality of that is you've had to get up early, 6 a.m. crew call, lug your gear up a hill. There's no working toilet. The elements are extreme. There's insects. You're cold in the morning and sunburnt in the afternoon. So, and those are all just the cost and effort factors. Sorry, but the variables are you're at the absolute mercy of the weather as well. Once you're out there, weather and available light can turn your photo shoot on its head in minutes. So what we were starting to do at Matter was really starting to address those factors. So the solution is just don't go on location. We figured, don't ever leave the comfort of the studio. It's air conditioned, there's a working toilet, you can get Uber Eats for lunch if you want, and you can create any kind of environment that you can imagine in the world. You're not geographically restricted like you are with, having to get flights somewhere. If you want to shoot in Santorini, we can do that from the comfort of the studio. So, based on the idea that not all of you have used generative AI, I just wanted to talk through the workflow. Generative AI concepting is the first stage where typically I'd take a brief from a client, they'd talk to me about the product that they'd like to see, shot in an environment. Ideally, they'd tell me about that environment, but often they don't, and they just kind of give us free rein. I'd then go into, the majority of the time I work in Midjourney because like Joanna, I agree it provides the best result. And I would focus on a mix of written prompts, really. That's where I focus my effort, and some style references and modifiers, but I think the written prompts are where you really get the best results. I'd send those through to the client, provide them with a bunch of options per, so if we were shooting 5 products, I'd send them 5 options per product. They'd make their selects before the shoot so that they've seen everything that we're going to create. I'd also work quite hard in those prompts to replicate something similar to their product. So you'd have to describe it, wouldn't be exact, but they don't have to stretch their imagination too much to see their product in that situation. So we get those approved before the shoot, and then we would move into the photography stage, which is where the kind of studio craft and all that experience that we've gathered really comes into play. So we'll focus really strongly on perspective and light sources and shadows and textures and all those things that we really need to replicate from the AI generated background. And then once that's done, we'll often actually, sometimes a product is shot in a lot of different stages. So a final image might be a composite of 6 different captures, because the lighting in AI generated images is often quite dynamic. So you need to work a lot to make the product match that. And from there, we'll move into post-production, which is the integration of the product into the AI scene. And that's a real dramatic oversimplification of quite a complex process, but I ran out of space. So that's, no, but Ron, Ron is our retoucher, and at that stage, he'll put together the puzzle, put together the many pieces of that puzzle. So why it's working, and this is probably, I think it should probably say, why is it working for us, or if it works, why aren't others doing it yet? Because I've only really seen probably 3 from around the world, probably 2 other people executing this really well. One was just from a YouTube channel of some guys working through their workflow, just kind of doing a demo video. And the other is an outfit from Denmark who probably have a couple of month head start on us. And they're really successful at the stage. They've really picked up speed. But what the commonality between us as a group that I see is that it's, in each case, it's a photographer and a retoucher team. And that's not typically how most photographers work. Most photographers will work on their own, and they might have an assistant or a digiop, but they'll outsource their retouching. But this is such a backwards process that it's essential that the photographer has the correct guidance from a post-production perspective. It's almost, the way I kind of see Ron working is it's almost like a music producer guiding a musician, almost just assembling the pieces of what they need to put together the kind of masterpiece at the end. So I think we're fortunate in the way that we work that way. That's the way our business has been structured for a lot of years. So it's played into our favor, but you don't see it happening worldwide very often. Visual literacy, which I talk about pretty regularly with clients. You know, we've got 20 years in the saddle. We've got a lot of time looking, evaluating, assessing, and creating imagery. So you kind of start to build this inherent understanding of what looks right and what doesn't, you know. So, and the other is inevitability. I think it's happening. People are starting to implement AI in their businesses, even if they don't know why yet. You know, there's like a pressure to integrate. I spoke to a lawyer friend the other day who said that his firm was integrating AI into their business. He said he felt like it was a solution looking for a problem. He didn't know why they were doing it yet, but they were doing it because other businesses were. They don't want to lose that competitive advantage to someone else. So I think there's this really good quote from Stuart Brand that I love. So once the new technology rolls over you, if you're not part of the steamroller, you're part of the road. And I think that's really relevant at the moment. You know, there's the CEO of Google saying that the development of AI is kind of is going to be more impactful for humankind than the discovery of fire or the invention of electricity. So when you've got people talking in that way and using hyperbole by that, I think it's just hyperbole like that, it just kind of creates this urgency. So who it's working for, this has been really interesting, to be honest. We've pushed really hard into the furniture industry because we know that it solves such a massive issue for them, because shooting furniture on location is hard. It's hard and you don't get a lot done. And but what we've seen is that there's been a group that's moved earlier than that, and that's a group that have not been able to shoot for some kind of reason. So there's been different reasons for each of them, but one of those we found was a company that creates kind of security devices, like very kind of high-tech locks and security kind of cameras and that kind of thing for you know, the White House and MI6 and all these prisons and jails and that kind of thing. And for whatever reason, they haven't been able to shoot their product in situ because they've kind of got NDAs with those people. They've got there's security issues and sensitivity around it. So we're kind of creating a suite of 20 images for them to showcase their products. Another was a flooring company who's probably viewed as the kind of middle of the road, but they have a range of premium products that they haven't been able to get in situ into the nicer homes because the people who have money aren't spending money with them. So we've been able to showcase their products in a high-end environment in situ. And then mass adaptation, I think, is coming very soon. So that's just going to be the people who are using the product or using AI just because they can. And I think we're probably within 6 months, I think we're there. As soon as the ad agencies really start picking up on this, I think that's when we move to mass adaptation. So these are my tips. This is from a message I sent to a creative director friend who was starting to use AI in his kind of concepting and storyboarding. So this is kind of a very kind of heartfelt, genuine process from me to him. So I thought it might be good to pass that on to you guys. Anyway, the first is to use multiple approaches, is to vary prompts. Prompting is where I really find that I make the most impact. Written prompts are always the best way to get to something. And I've generated 10,000 images in the last 3 months. It's just, and it comes down to changing micro changes of your prompts, varying the prompt structure, moving things, because Midjourney in particular ranks your prompts from first to last in order of importance. So if something's not being featured well enough or is being featured too much, you just move it up or down the prompt structure. Modifiers, -- no, all those kinds of things are helpful, but I use them as a fallback. I don't like to include them in my early prompts. I think they're great modifiers at the end. Vary image is helpful, and it's kind of the go-to for everyone. You know, it's easy to just keep clicking, but I find that more often than not takes you away from your original prompting and where you started. And if there's any kind of Midjourney hallucination or AI hallucination at the start, that's only going to amplify or multiply as you move away with very image. Vary regions also super helpful if you just want to remove a certain part of an image or change that out. Aspect ratio changes are helpful, and SREF, which came out in version 6 of Midjourney, is also massively helpful if you want to apply, if there's an image that you love with a great treatment, or something that you'd like that's stylistic rather than content, you can use that as an SREF. It can, I mean, if I was making furniture photos, but I like the treatment of a Polaroid of somebody's face, I could apply that with an SREF, and Midjourney would evaluate the stylistic content, not the actual content itself. Multiple programs, and this was probably our biggest discovery. In my experience, you won't get a crafted result using only one program. Typically, we'll go from creating artwork in Midjourney to something like Photoshop, retouching bits and pieces out. Then we'll go to an upscaler, and then we'll probably go back to an upscaler like Krea, and then we'll move back to Photoshop, because I just don't think the end result comes straight out of Midjourney. I think there needs to be extra steps to, it's 75% done out of Midjourney, but it needs those extra steps to be believable. Zoom in correct, stand back correct. I think it's super helpful to view the work from a distance. There's something there's like a dopamine hit with Midjourney. You're in it, you're amazed by this artwork that it's created based on your prompts. You're so caught up in it that I think you need to break that and stand back and view it from a distance, and you start to see its inconsistencies and things that are wrong with it. So that's typically the way we'll work. Me and Rob will kind of hover behind Ronnie from about 2 or 3 meters, telling him what we can see that he can't. And don't put it out if it doesn't look real. This relates to something that I feel is coming, but looking cool isn't good enough. It needs to look genuine, believable, and real. I think there's a backlash coming for the kind of glut of kind of average work that's out there, which is quite clearly AI generated. I think we've kind of seen it before in the past with HDR and Instagram filters and early Photoshop with just heavily overdone skin. It's really cool and novel at the start, but people very quickly move back to wanting to see something that looks more real and more genuine. And in the kind of sea of stuff that we're already seeing on Instagram and other things, it needs to be believable to be real. It needs to be believable to be liked. People are just going to flash past it. So what does the future look like? Like I just mentioned, I think there's an AI fatigue coming. I know I'm kind of further advanced down the process than a lot of people, but I'm starting to feel it already. Just seeing a ton of stuff out there that's just unrealistic and over computer generated, and I'm already starting to be frustrated by it. I know the public will go that way as well. So I think you just need to really focus on making everything as believable and as genuine as you can. I think that artists will truly lead the charge in that case. You know, it's the same as it's always been for, when there's access to cheap digital cameras or cameras on your iPhone. All of a sudden, anyone can make anything, but the standard is fairly subpar. And it's at that stage that the artists come through again and are highly valued again when they're creating something that stands out as genuinely artistic and creative. At that stage, I think the dam breaks, and I think that's probably realistically 6 months away. I think AI video generation, which Justin talked about, is truly the next kind of frontier. The rate that's, most of you would have seen that footage from Sora, and I think Boximator also from a commercial perspective, Boximator by TikTok is also going to be really groundbreaking. I think in the next 2 months, once Sora gets into the hands of the public, we're going to see some pretty spectacular stuff. I think, genuine storytelling with text video generation is closer than we think. Apart from that, I think you can only really speculate what's ahead at the rate that things are moving, because it's mind-blowing at the moment. So anyway, that's enough of me talking. Here's some photos of the work that we've been doing lately. Enjoy.